Joining us now to examine the state of our constitutional rights amid these unprecedented times is attorney Mike Berry, the general counsel of First Liberty Institute. So, Mike, when we look at Justice Alito's speech, I thought it was a very interesting one because we don't hear from Supreme Court justices that often, let alone really taking a position, if you will, of where they come from their legal standing. So when you looked at that speech, what stood out to you?
Well, what immediately stood out to me was just how powerful Justice Alito's speech was when it comes to defending our most cherished rights as Americans, our religious freedom. Justice Alito clearly was sort of looking forward to the future of the fight for religious freedom in this country and accurately predicted that there are going to be many more battles. And these battles are going to only get worse, I think, for Americans of faith and Americans who value our constitutional rights and freedoms. And so I think he was correct and prescient, really, in predicting that regardless of who occupies the White House or who occupies Congress, that the rhetoric is going to be turned up quite a few notches. And Americans of faith are going to have to really start digging in to protect their own rights and really start paying attention to what's happening around them.
And I feel like this conversation has been expedited by the coronavirus pandemic. Of course, we've seen churches being closed down. We've seen a lot of religious liberties, but just more broadly, civil liberties kind of be affected by coronavirus lockdowns and just in the name of coronavirus more broadly. But was this an issue when it came to religious liberties that was taking place even before coronavirus?
Yeah, you know, we've seen the battle for religious liberty between individual Americans, places of worship, faith-based organizations, et cetera, and governments who've tried to go after them for simply wanting to live out their faith and freely exercise their religious beliefs as the Constitution protects. That's been going on for decades, if not longer, in this country. But the level and intensity of the threats to religious freedom really picked up during the coronavirus pandemic because there are many government officials out there who wrongly and mistakenly believe that there is an exception to the First Amendment during a pandemic. And at First Liberty Institute, we took those battles head on, and we filed a number of legal actions, and we won every single one of them. So again, proving that there is no exception under there's no pandemic exception to the First Amendment in this country.
And you mentioned that your organization has been fighting these type of battles for decades. And now we're at a time where we're looking at a Supreme Court, for example, that has Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Judge Amy Coney Barrett on there, giving them a 6-3 majority in the upper chamber, not to mention the lower courts as well. There's been a large influx of conservatives who have taken those positions as well. Are you more confident moving forward that religious liberties will be protected with these judges on their certain panels?
Well, I'm certainly more confident in the courts that we have and the judges that are on those courts. I think we're seeing a return to originalist judges and the justices of the Supreme Court, as you mentioned. We now have a 6-3 majority. So we're certainly hopeful, but I think all that does for us is to level the playing field. We now have an even playing field when it comes to taking these fights into our courts. But what it really needs is Americans, everyday Americans who are willing to stand up for their religious freedoms. You know, religious liberty, just like any other right or any other freedom, is only as strong as those who are willing to stand up for it. And so at First Liberty Institute, we're here telling every American who will listen, we're here to defend your religious freedom free of charge. All we need for you to do is stand up and be willing to fight. And if Americans are willing to fight for their religious freedoms, we can win these fights in our courts for the exact reason that you said. We've got good judges. We've got a great 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court now. Let's put it to good use.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something that's really important is that the courts, they make the final determination on the law, things of that nature, but nothing's more powerful than a grassroots type of movement, something that really reflects the will of the people. And I think that's something that you're speaking to right now that doesn't get the media coverage that it always deserves because there is one side of this argument that people don't like talking about. So I think you're exactly right to bring it up. But Mike Berry, I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight, breaking down Justice Alito's comments and the whole idea of religious liberties more broadly, because as I was just saying, it doesn't always get the coverage it deserves. Thank you for joining us.